Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to this brand new episode of Hockeytown Rundown. You're here with us, your beautiful hosts, once again, Carlo and Zach. Carlo, it is the weekend,
Zach,
buddy.
what's happening?
How's your Sunday?
It's going. It's Sunday. Slow moving, chilling, taking it about 1 minute at a time here. How about you, buddy?
Slow grooving as well. It's already hot outside. I was playing some driveway hockey with the dogs, and here we are recording today this brand new episode of Hockeytown Rundown. Cannot complain. But here we go. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. What do we have in store today, Carlo? Well, we're going to do our best and try to project the lineup this season for the 25-26 season of the Detroit Red Wings. If you are watching or listening to us on YouTube, if you haven't already, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and then hit that notification bell that lets you know when these brand new episodes come out. If you are watching or listening on Spotify, yes, you can do both. I don't know if you knew that. You can also leave some comments in there. You guys have been doing that for us. Why don't you go ahead and hit that follow button, rate us a 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. Do the exact same thing. You guys know what to do. And then you can follow us on all of our social medias, Twitter, X, whatever you call it at home, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. Please go ahead and follow us on all of our social medias. We are trying to pump out as much content and be as engaged with you guys this season, this off season, because right now, Carlo, it's pretty slow moving, kind of like this Sunday, honestly. And so we're going to go ahead and try and do our best to project this lineup. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, buddy.
Yeah, let's do it. We should add, we should add a disclaimer real quick. I really hate projecting lineups. I think I could probably speak for the both of us this early. I think we all kind of feel and think there should be a move coming. Maybe 2, who knows? So the preface of this is that this is just a way too early projection of the lineup, but we're going to try to have some fun with it. There's nothing else going on, so hang with us and see if you think we're nuts or if we're onto something here and getting flavorful on that big gap on the left wing of the top line. So we're going to have some fun here to plug and play some guys and see what it looks like and see if we can make some noise. So, Zach, what do we got?
Yeah, not really trying to speak for Carlo here, but he's right. I mean, there's really not much going on, and there could be other moves coming along because looking at that projected cap space, the Detroit Red Wings still have $12 million. Even with a full roster count of 23 out of 23, they have all their retention spots still available. All their draft picks for the 2026 draft that will be upcoming next year. It's a weird time for Detroit Red Wings fans. It's a weird time for Detroit in general for this team because Steve Yzerman didn't go out and get the players that we would have loved to have gotten. And so let's just go ahead and scroll down and look and see what the projected lineup based on what Puckpedia has for this team. And we'll just go ahead and read it through. On the top line, you have James Van Riemsdyk on the left wing, Dylan Larkin at the center, and then Lucas Raymond on the right wing side. Second line, Alex DeBrincat, Marco Kasper, then Patrick Kane. Third line, Andrew Kopp, JT Compher, Mason Appleton, Masel, my boy. Elmer Soderblom on the fourth line, Michael Rasmussen as the center, and then Jonathan Berggren over on the right wing. And then going down on the defense, you got Ben Sherratt, Mo Seider, Simon Edvinsson, Albert Johansson, Eric Gustafsson, and Jacob Bernard Docker. And obviously in net, your starting goaltender moving forward will be John Gibson for the next 2 years. And then backing up would be Cam Talbot. And then your extras, Carter Mazur, Austin Watson, and Justin
Here's Zach's first one of the day. Austin Waston.
I don't even think we're 5 minutes in yet. Here we go, boys and girls. Jesus Murphy. It's the Sunday Scaries hitting early today. Carlo, let's just pick apart what they have listed here so far on the forward end. What do we like and what do we not like looking at this right now?
Well, we got a 36-year-old in JVR on the top line. I think we got to call that one out pretty quickly. I think the second line I love. I got no beef with the second line whatsoever. But the JVR one stands out a lot. The bottom 6 we can get into after because it's, the bottom 6. But, how many games do you really think JVR can hang on the top line for? I think he's good for some. I just have a hard time thinking it's going to be more than 10. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with you that it's going to be a similar situation of what we saw last year. It's going to be a lot of plug and play. It's going to be a lot of changes. It's going to be a lot of players that we're going to see move up and down of the lineup. And I do believe that it's actually going to be based on case by case scenario, depending on what teams that we go up against, who we see on that top line. I would agree with you that I think that second line is pretty much solidified moving forward. There are going to be opportunities, I do believe, actually, where we will see Alex DeBrincat maybe move up on that top line, Marco Kasper. We've seen Elmer Soderblom go up there, and we have seen players like Jonathan Berggren as well. And so I will agree with you that having JVR up there on the top line is not ideal, especially since right before we started recording this, I asked you how many hits he had this past season with the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was very light. It was 31 hits, right? It's not the biggest line either. And you look at JVR, he's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's going to be tough to get off the puck, but I would agree with you. This is a guy that, well, granted, he was a former second overall pick in the draft way back when and just put up 36 points on a not the greatest Columbus Blue Jackets team, but in 31 games, he put up 61 or 16 goals. So I don't foresee him being on the top line. And for this reason, I'm out and I'm moving him down.
I mean, listen, consistently, no, I don't think so. But I think he's going to get looks. I think, honestly, I think there's going to be 3 or 4 guys that get looks on the top line if this is the roster going into next season, the main roster going into next season. Again, this is why we preface that this is just way too early to do this type of stuff, but we're having fun today. So let's have fun. JVR's down. Do we try to work up and figure out who's plugging that hole, or should we work ourselves down and come back to it after?
That's a great question. Based on what we're seeing right now, who do you believe would more than likely be the best fit for that top left wing spot based on what we're looking at right now?
To be honest with you, I think it's in terms of skill level and who can play there consistently throughout the season. I think you know where I'm going with this, but it's Marco Kasper.
I would agree with you on that. And it's solely based on what we saw out of him last season. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have expectations to see him back in that spot. As much as we want to see him convert his NHL career into a center and be that 2C for us in the future, maybe even potentially a 1C, who knows, because these players are still so young. I think right now you have to give that spot to a Marco Kasper. If it's not that top line spot, I think it's Marco Kasper and Alex DeBrincat are interchangeable. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with you again, based on skill and who I think can hang there for and who belongs there without being just over indexed. I hate saying that word because we say it so often, but it's just such a reality for us. It sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be Kasper, DeBrincat, but I mean, you got to put a lot of thought into DeBrincat because I feel like he just unlocks a lot with Patrick Kane and vice versa. I think Patrick Kane obviously unlocks a lot with DeBrincat too. So you got to be careful with that one. That's kind of why I elected for Marco Kasper without hesitation. But then, I mean, you have another hole right there staring right at us in the face here with C2. And that's where things get interesting, I think.
Would it be out of the world, though, to see Andrew Kopp back at that 2C spot, considering how well he picked it up when Todd McClellan came in as the new Detroit Red Wings head coach, that we could finally see that resurgence in him where he kind of has that bounce back season, right? And kind of gets back into that 50-point mold of a player that we would hope to see him be.
Yeah.
And I don't really need too many points out of him, but I just need him to start playing more defensively, more two-way, and show a little bit more offense than what he has provided for us.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's crazy at all. I was a big fan of Copper when the Todd father came in, to be honest with you. I thought he looked different. He looked enthused. He just looked like he was playing a little bit of a different type of game. And, you know,
yeah, he looked like a different player.
He really did. And to the point where I was like, wow, Cop looks good. And like, I just haven't said that in such a long time, leading up until Todd coming in. But you know what I wonder real quick, and this has to do with Cop, which is why I bring it up. But, you know, we know Cop's game defensively, again, it's not sexy, but it's effective. I wonder if Mason Appleton takes quite a bit of the load off of Andrew Cop in terms of playing the type of role. I feel like he was asked to play a role, and he chin down did it. He didn't ask any questions, and you know, he did what he had to do. But now with Mason Appleton, who I think brings that grit and brings that dog, brings that defensive type of play, defensive first type of play, I should say. I wonder if that takes a bit of a load off of Andrew Kopp for him to go out there and shine offensively with DeBrincat and Kane. If that's the case, I'm down to see Andrew Kopp center the second line with DeBrincat and Kane. And I think it's justifiable because we get to see top line Marco Kasper, and that makes me really excited.
I would agree with you that I do believe that Mason Appleton, and not only to Andrew Copp, to your point, but I also believe that it's actually going to help out JT Compher, because JT Compher is also someone who has been struggling in his Red Wings tenure. So adding someone like a Mason, I almost called him Mason again. Jesus,
We're
Murphy. I don't know what it is, but I love that man, and I love
the folks
calling
at
him
home.
Mason.
That's two.
Twice now.
Austin
Mason
Watson.
Appleton. Yeah, I just really do believe that he's going to bring in more than what a lot of Red Wings fans believe that he can actually do. We were watching some of his highlights from the 21-22 season. There's really not too many highlights out there of him, but I'm not really expecting too many points. I want him to be more of that heavy body, that Tarasenko replacement, while Tarasenko was supposed to be someone who is hard to play against, could utilize his shot and score for us. I just actually believe that Mason Appleton is going to be a little bit better than what Michael Rasmussen is in terms of the forecheck and the heaviness that he can bring. Granted, I don't believe that he's going to bring a lot of hitting for us, but I do believe he's going to be a player that's going to be really tough to get off the puck, especially along the boards. And we saw that in those highlights that we watched, Carlo. And so I do believe that not only for Andrew Copp going back to it, I think that he's going to be able to help out JT Compher. Now, looking at it right now, JT Compher being on that third center spot, it just makes the most sense for me moving forward right now. And that's why I wanted to put Andrew Copp as that 2C to see if there is a resurgence there. And like we mentioned, everything can be interchangeable. And that's what we're going to see at the start of or throughout the season, actually. But what we're trying to do is project and predict what the opening night roster will look like on day one. And obviously moving forward, that's always going to change, right? But I do believe right now that top six would be a lock for me, Carlo.
Yep.
I'm very interested to see how McClellan will make that bottom six, because do we put JVR right there at the left wing spot for the third line? And then you have what below that is Elmer Soderblom, Michael Rasmussen, and Jonathan Berggren. So kind of a kid line almost, but some NHL experience there too. And a lot of fans will probably hate it when I say it like this. It's depth. Is this the worst bottom six? No. Is it the best? No. But your thoughts on that third line looking at that so far?
That's exactly the way I expect it to line up. If this is the core roster going into majority of the season, I do expect to see that. You know, I think you brought up a good point about Mason Appleton also lightening the load of JT Compher and his defensive responsibilities and playing that role type of player. I think you're bang on with that one. Granted, this isn't to say like Andrew Copp and JT Compher aren't going to play defense. I think this whole team needs to be defense minded and defense
100%.
first for sure. But I think Mason Appleton does bring in a lot more effective style of play when it comes to the defensive side of the game, which could let both those guys, Compher and Copp, flourish a little bit more offensively. At least we hope. So, I mean, you guys know how it rolls over here. Seeing is believing. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. But to answer your question, once and for all, that third line makes sense to me. The age seems to be kind of spread out as well. Let's see what it's got. Then we got fourth line with the kids that you mentioned too. I mean, well, I shouldn't say kid. I mean, Rasmussen, and then you got Berggren and Soderblom. I guess they're kids, but
that's my fault for calling it the kid line, but that's basically what it is for us right now, because we haven't inserted anyone like a Carter Mazur, no Nate Danielson, but we haven't gotten to that point, right?
Yeah.
I would extend it and still claim it as a kid line, because looking at it right now, even if you inserted a Carter Mazur, Nate Danielson, I don't think Tom McClellan would put them even on the third line. So I would call the fourth line the kid line moving forward from here. Personally, to me, let us know what you think at home. Leave it down in the comments.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. I mean, this is the thing. Like, this is the lineup going into this coming season with this roster. Now, again, we started this. We all think it's way too soon to do this, and it probably is, because if a trade does come through, you know, there's immediately a hole that needs to be filled. So is it being filled with whoever's coming back? Is it a move to clear more cap for something greater during the trade deadline, or maybe even next offseason? This all remains to be seen. But either way, I don't know, man. Maybe we kind of talk about who could be traded realistically, and then look at the hole that is left from that potential trade candidate, to see if it's coming back in a return or if it's a young guy coming up, or if is it Mazur stepping back into the lineup? Is Danielson coming through? Is MBN getting some looks? I mean, there's so many different ways we can go with this, depending on the outcome that happens. But I mean, going into it, this looks like this might be it for the forward group. But before we get into the creative stuff and having some fun, let's chalk up the defense. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, going back to it, Ben Sherratt, Moritz Seider on your top pair, Simon Edvinsson, Albert Johansson as your second pair, Erik Gustafsson, Jacob Bernard Docker as your third pair. First things first, obviously, as much as I really want to swap Simon Edvinsson with Ben Sherratt to make it the Mo Ed pair, you have to spread it out. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of the Detroit Red Wings right now. I think that this is it. The only change I would make would be the Simon Edvinsson with Ben Sherratt. You would just swap them. And so do you want Ben Sherratt to play with Albert Johansson? And you could do that to where you then could swap Albert Johansson to go over to the left side and Ben Sherratt on the right side. We've seen that a few times last season. I think this is it, Carlo. I don't know what kind of changes I can make here. What about you?
Without making a trade, yeah, this is it. You're absolutely right. And you kind of called it out. You got to spread things out as much as possible to create that balance and create that, call it skill on each line. Although there's a lot to be seen on that third pairing, I'll be honest with you. Hopefully JBD can bring some juice. But no, there's really not much more we can do here. Like this is where it has to kind of look like this. As much as we don't want to see Ben Sherratt and Mo Seider on the same line anymore, we kind of have to, unless there's a move, right? Unless there's a move. And there's been a lot of talks about Detroit still in the market for, that second pair defenseman, whether they shoot left or right. I'll be honest with you, at this point, I really don't care. We just need a serviceable top 4 D-man to come in. But these are things that remain to be seen. So hopefully we see something. And, this is where things get interesting because maybe it's a forward that gets traded out and the return is a defenseman for whatever reason, right? And then you have that hole on forward. You did fill a gap in your D zone or your D group, but now you got to fill that hole on forward because you just traded somebody out on the forward side. So, I mean, that's where things kind of can throw some interesting curveballs at Toddy Boy. Right.
What is your expectation for this third pair? Because you did bring that up where Erik Gustafsson, we brought him in last season to kind of be that point producing guy, someone who can come in and kind of quarterback the power play a little bit. It was an ultimate failure, to say the least. Right. And then you bring in someone like a JBD who has some pretty high potential that has not really been seen yet. I don't believe that he's been given the greatest opportunity either, whether if that was in Ottawa or even going to Buffalo. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this third pair works out. But what are your expectations when it comes to an Erik Gustafsson and a JBD, Jacob Bernard Docker, if this is the pair going into the opening night?
Yeah, man, like JBD could be a sleeper. Like he could be that Jake Wallman type of grab where, and this is very wishful thinking, but he could be that guy that hasn't really popped yet. Maybe they see something, they pick him up for dirt cheap. Like even if he sucks, he's dirt cheap. But he could be that sleeper pick, man. And he could turn some heads. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. I mean, it's very, very wishful. We saw what Gustafsson did for the team last season. I mean, it was just like, it wasn't good enough. Like he just looked like it was I don't know if it was a systems thing. I have no clue what it was, dude. He just did not he looked nervous. Like every time he touched the puck, he looked nervous.
Yeah.
A PP2, forget about it. Like he looked like he never played a power play before in his life. So, but
to give him the benefit of the doubt, though, he definitely looked better under Tom McLellan. He started racking up the points a little bit more.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, listen, a lot of guys did. A lot of guys. Todd McLellan deserves his flowers here for a second because he really, let's not forget that this team snapped off 2 7-game heaters without Mason Appleton, right? Without JBD, without James Van Riemsdyk. So, there's a lot of people that say oh, this team's worse. I don't think so. I really don't think it is. And there's a lot of folks that they just keep bashing on the construction of the team. And it's just seeing is believing, number one. Folks really need to remember that. But I really don't think this team is worse, Zach. I really don't. I just think there's a lot that we need to still see, especially, like I said, you bring up JBD. What impact can he have? Well, I'm hoping it's a really good one. I don't know too much about JBD, but I think he has the potential to possibly be that sleeper. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But, I will say Gustafsson, back to him real quick. He had a pretty decent Worlds, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was him feeling good based off the way his season ended, or if that's him feeling good because the season's over and he's getting prepped for a new one. Either way, I'll take whatever option he's looking at it with. But I don't know. It's a third pairing. And I think we're going to see some looks to figure out how this team's going to click and what the best method is for them to click. I really think, we look at this lineup. I think we're going to see a lot of different variations of it, man, throughout the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's going to be actually some opportunity where we see JBD actually jump up into that second pair. I do actually agree with you that he is the sleeper here. I do think that there could be some sort of resurgence with an Erik Gustafsson, but it's asking how much are we going to see of that, right? And I got to ask this question, Carlo. What do we want more from this defense? Because it's no secret that our defense didn't put up a lot of scoring last season. The Red Wings in general, their goal scoring actually dropped significantly, but their defense actually improved slightly, but still allowed a lot of goals. So defense obviously has to play defense first, but what would you like to see more out of them? Put up a little bit more points or be able to defend a lot better than what we saw of them last season?
I think defend. I think if you're playing D, that needs to be priority one. That's not a shocking answer. I think that we have the capability to score goals, especially up front. That top six can light it up. I think if our defense can figure out how to play defense, as funny as that sounds, and really keep pucks out of the net, we immediately have a better chance at winning hockey games. We just do. And that's a very simple formula. Play defense, play good defense, score some goals, win the game. Like it's not rocket science by any means, but I think if we play better D and we keep pucks out of our net, this team is still flirting with wild card. I'm not comfortable enough to say it's going to make it. I'm really not. But I think they are still flirting with wild card. And if everything goes really well for them, especially on the defensive side, they may surprise us. Keyword may. What do you think?
Yeah. I would agree. And I would say that was probably the Red Wings' biggest issue when it came to, not obviously only on the PK side, the penalty kill side, because the Red Wings PK, bottom five. It was just one of the worst PKs that the league had last year. 5-on-5. Yeah, this defense, if they can just learn how to defend 5-on-5 and the structure of it, it's going to get a little bit better. We're not going to allow as many pucks in our net, and the transitions just got to be a lot more smooth, getting out of our zone, going into the neutral zone, and then going into the offensive zone. And I always go back to this, and you brought this up, that a lot of fans are saying that this team actually got worse. You got Marco Kasper, who started on the season last year for his first season. You had Elmer Soderblom kind of finally coming back and getting his full season in finally. Jonathan Berggren, same thing, kind of his second season. Simon Edvinsson, his first full season with some games before that too. Then Albert Johansson. I think what a lot of people, and I hate to put people in a box like this and just assume, but I think what a lot of fans look at too is they look at the players like the James Van Riemsdykes, the Mason Appletons, and then I'll just throw in JBD in there. And they look at what they did last season just based on points. That's fine. It's very easy to do that and say, okay, this is a good player, this is a bad player. But the little things, what can they do little thing wise? But now that we're going into the first offseason with a Tom McClellan, a Trent Yanni, if this team can figure it out defensively, 5-on-5, this team definitely has a better chance at making it into that wild card spot. Because our 5-on-5 was one of the worst in the league too, right? That's no secret as well. So I do believe that a lot of these players that we added, including these younger players who can get better time over time, they're not just because Marco Kasper only put up 30 something points doesn't mean that's what he's going to be moving forward.
Right.
What is he?
21.
Yeah, 21 years old. So I think a lot of people have to kind of let that go. And that's why I brought up, you can look at the stat sheet and see what they put up, but you shouldn't be sitting there saying there's no way this team can improve. Because I do believe that these younger players, they're nowhere near their primes. You brought that up. I believe it was the last episode we did last weekend.
Yep.
These kids can improve. My expectation for Marco Kasper is to be a 50-plus point player. And I actually do believe that he can get that this season. But a lot of these other players have to make that step too. Jonathan Berggren, can he be a 30 to 40 point guy? Elmer Soderblom, same thing. Another question too is, can Patrick Kane consistently stay in that 50 to 60 point range? There's a lot of questions about some of these players. So not only do we have to ask the question about some of these mid players, so to say, like the JVRs and the Mason Appletons, but can these younger guys and these older guys, can they improve their games? And if not, then it's going to be a bad look for the Detroit Red Wings, and we might not sniff wild card positions come December once again if they don't figure it out. But it all comes down to the structure of the coach and their systems. And so if Todd McLellan can insert that directly into the brains of these players and the players that we already have and forcing it into the players that we just brought on, I actually believe that this can be a wild card team. They just got to be super tough to play against. We got bigger, we got a little bit older, so that in return, I think is going to help us out in the long run, Carlo. That's my long-winded answer, I guess.
Yeah. Takeaway for me from that, which was great, was, remembering the fact that we have Lucas Raymond, who's 23, Marco Kasper, who's 21, even Moritz Seider, 24, Iman Edvinsson, 22, Wilbur Johansson, 24. You got quite a few guys. I mean, Berggren's 24, Soderblom's 24. You got a lot of youth on this team already. And to your point, these guys are taking steps every year. You're naive to think they're not. Look at their age,
Correct.
Right? Your prime starts when you're 28? That's when you're like at that peak prime. Yeah, 27, 26, it might start. And then 28, your peak prime, 28, 29. So, we got a lot of youth on this team that is already playing very good hockey you got to remember their age, man. Like, if you're going to go back and look at how many points did they get us last year and you're solely going to base it off of that, please scroll up a little bit and write down their age and just keep that in mind, because these kids are all still taking steps year in, year out, and those steps are going to make this team better. It is going to make this team harder to play against as well. I think a lot of people are upset or disappointed at some of the free agent signings this year because they're either names that they don't know, they didn't fill an immediate hole, like the top 4D or the top line wing. And right away, because those holes weren't addressed, it's like, oh my God, Steve Yzerman's the worst GM in the world. Fire him, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, again, back to my point and Zach's point earlier. These kids are making steps. We know nothing compared to what the organization knows, what the coaching staff knows in terms of a game plan. We know zero. We're speculating and we're having fun because it's in the middle of July. So like I said, the only hole I think we still have, Zach, is on D. I do still think that's going to get addressed. How it gets addressed, we're not sure. But I think that the kids are all right, man. The kids are all right, and they are going to be a big testament to this team being able to flirt with that wild card spot this coming season with the steps that they take going into the coming season. So really well said on your part. That was my takeaway. I just wanted to call that out and double down on that one because I feel like that's often overlooked, man.
Yeah, what did I call it last episode? The hopes and dreams off season?
Yep.
The hopes and dreams off season, because I do believe that Steve Yzerman is actually going to be setting, and Tom McLellan's going to be doing the same thing. And I'm not saying that it's Steve Yzerman putting out Tom McLellan. I think Tom McLellan already has it in his mind that we have to start putting higher expectations, if it wasn't set already, on some of these players. And unfortunately, it's going to have to fall on players like Marco Kasper, Elmer Soderblom, and Jonathan Berggren on top of a Lucas Raymond. Like you mentioned, Lucas Raymond, he's probably got the highest expectation out of all of these players, excluding Dylan Larkin being the
100%.
captain. Correct. And Lucas Raymond, he's got to start putting up more points. Granted, I know you can only do so much, right? But my expectation is that Lucas Raymond, he's got to enter into that 85-plus point territory. He's got to be closer to that 90-point per season type of player. I really do believe that that's doable. Your thoughts on that, Carlo?
I agree 100%. I think that it's actually very impressive what Raymond's done up until this point, playing with Dylan Larkin and nobody else on the left wing. Because that left wing spot, it's an over-index. Like, they don't belong on the top line left wing. So the fact that Raymond's able to do what he's been doing with Dylan Larkin and then floaters that are coming in and being streamlined on that left wing side is super, super impressive for me. So to your point, if Marco Casper stays up there, I think he has the ability and the skill set. Keep in mind, he's 21, and we're talking about him like this. He can be a top line left wing. I think we'd all selfishly would like to see him on the 2C pairing for sure. But for the sake of having a true top line, I think he could be there. And I think with him there solidified and him riding out the season, whether it be 82 games, 72 games, whatever the case may be, barring injuries, you're going to see Lucas Raymond take an even bigger step, man, because he's got that other player outside of Dylan Larkin that can hang on that top line against matchups and whatnot. So I think you're bang on about Lucas Raymond, dude. I think he can be that 90-point guy. I think the expectations are definitely on him to points we made, highest paycheck, and just the way he's been kind of projecting rather. I think you're bang on that one, and I'm really excited to see what Ray has for us this coming season. Granted that he's playing with a complete top line. Can't stress that enough.
Let's talk about some of these bench players. So they had listed on there Carter Mazur, Austin Watson, and Justin Hall. Justin Hall, that's a given. He's definitely your seventh defenseman, and it's unfortunate to even say it like that. Austin Watson, I actually don't believe that he would start with us as an extra. I do believe fully that he would just go back down to Grand Rapids Griffins. And then Carter Mazur, that's him, and I would say Nate Danielson and then Amadeus Lombardi on the forward end are the three that would have the most likely paths to make the opening night roster. If there was one player on this current roster right now that you could swap out with any of those three guys, who would it be?
That's a good question. Like within the four lines we have scoped out here?
Correct. I'll answer it right now. I don't
it.
think that there's really anyone. Maybe Jonathan Berggren, and that's just to pick on him because a lot of us Red Wings fans believe that there's more in him that we haven't seen yet, and we're just hoping that it pops. But I think a lot of people are losing faith in that. And so that's kind of my reason for selecting him.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking too. But I mean, at the same time, that's just to pick on somebody, right? But the other part of it too, and the other side of the coin, Zach, is, you talked about Danielson and Ammo. I don't think either of them are ready for the NHL, which makes this decision even more complicated because it's like we're not going to put somebody up for the sake of putting somebody up. And I just don't think they're ready. Carter Mazur, we're hearing that he's over 200 and he had a massive offseason. Guy must have ate a ton. Good for you, Carter. I can see him flirting in this lineup. I can see him, coming in. For who? I don't know. Is it Berggren? Is it Soderblom? I don't know. But I can see him coming in. But I can't see the other two. Ammo's small, man. Ammo's a small dude. I think he's got some weight to put on. Maybe he's got to get on Carter's diet. But Danielson, I think we need to see a full season of him dominating in the AHL like he's projected to, and like everybody wants him to. That's just me, though. That's just me. I mean, a lot of people are okay with Danielson coming up into the lineup because they've made talks about it like crazy. And there's some folks that are even like, oh, you're crazy to want to trade Danielson. And these are all fair takes. But for this lineup, I don't know, man. I don't think those two are good. But I'll ask you about Carter Mazur, though. What are your thoughts on Carter Mazur? Do you think he fits into this mold?
If we didn't go out and get a James Van Riemsdyk, that probably would have been the spot that I would have put Carter Mazur in.
Makes sense.
But I don't believe that James Van Riemsdyk is the odd man out on this roster. I still kind of go back to Jonathan Berggren. But one thing I'm very intrigued in is that we haven't touched on how Michael Rasmussen is the fourth line center. And he is not the greatest center ever. So you look at some of these other players on this roster. I mean, it kind of goes back to, do we put Marco Casper on that 2 seed? Then we bump Andrew Kopp down to the 3 seed, then JT Comfort down at the 4 seed. Do we go that route? So
that would be the only other route for center depth.
Exactly. And so where does Carter Mazur fit in there? He just simply has to beat someone out. And I even feel bad as putting him as an extra where he's sitting on the bench, right? Especially on game one, because the only player we did that to was Albert Johansson last year. We didn't do that to a Marco Casper. We told him, hey, go down to Grand Rapids and get the top line minutes there. And then he got the call up. So either a trade has to happen for Carter Mazur to be in this roster. I would love to have him on here, though, because I do believe that he actually can come in and contribute, because I do believe that he actually has a little bit of bite, grit, and tenacity, very similar to what a Marco Casper brings. And I would love to see actually Marco Kasper, Carter Mazur, and Jonathan Berggren man the third line together. Just imagine it just for a second.
Well,
Just for a
we can
second.
imagine it, but I think Casper's solidified himself, and he's created a couple degrees of separation from those two cats. But we can imagine it.
Now, what if you went this route, though? Because like I said, and this is just us tinkering now a little bit, because we saw this all of last year. Elmer on the top line with Larkin, Raymond. Your second line is DeBrincat, Kopp, Kane. Your third line, Mazur, Kasper, Berggren. Fourth line, Rasmussen, Comfer, Appleton. Obviously, you could even then swap this, let's say. But then, same thing. You don't have Marco Kasper paired up with Mazur and Berggren anymore.
He'd be
but
2C.
we would not see Marco Kasper going down to the 4C. It's just unlikely. I would
not.
say there's a 0% chance that will ever happen again, unless we went out and won the draft lottery and got or made a trade for Austin Matthews, like the one mock trade that we did on
that was nuts.
episode. If you guys haven't caught that episode, please go ahead and watch that. We released that on Thursday night. It was a long one for me, unfortunately. Not the episode, but a long night getting that out there for you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. Go ahead and check that out. But this would be a fun little exercise to see, right? Or maybe you even go back up to this.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. That right there makes a little more sense based off of, again, how Kasper finished the season and the separation that he created for himself against those other guys. That makes a lot more sense to me.
Who is the player on this roster right now do you think has the unexpected season that does better than you expected them to do?
In what aspect? The goal scoring aspect or like the complete game aspect?
Let's call it both. Let's call it like the Tage Thompson effect, where one season he was like finding his groove, then all of a sudden he has one really good offseason and he just pops. Goals, points, the whole 9 yards of overall play.
Well, I can tell you who I hope it is, just for the sake of finally being able to see it in the NHL. It'd be Jonathan Berggren. Jonathan. What am I saying? Yanni Burgers.
Yanni.
That's the answer I think that would like make everybody smile, you know? But again, like look at who he's lined up with. Comfer and JVR. Hey, that could be a sneaky good line based off of matchups, and it could happen. I just think you got to look at the ice time stuff too, and Burgers. He's going to need ice time to do that. So if that's the lineup going in, I don't know how likely it is, though, again, I would love to see it. I honestly think Lucas Raymond is going to have a massive year.
Yeah.
I really do think that he's going to have a massive year. Just with the steps he's taking. He's 23 years old, dude. Like, it's nuts.
Let's talk about Dylan Larkin. Not a secret, he just had his first kid. So congratulations to you guys on the beautiful baby girl.
Yes.
And you made a comment a while ago. I don't know if you remember this, but it was something along the lines of, watch Dylan pop off. He's going to go full dad mode because he's a girl dad now. He's got it in him.
Hey, it's huge. There's an energy for sure that carries, you know, when that happens. So, you know, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay. That's all it is. And he can't even control that. He just needs to stay healthy. And I think he could have, you know, a really, really good season. I think all these guys on the top line are capable of having very, very, very good seasons for themselves. It's a matter of staying healthy, like it is for anybody. And it's a matter of being motivated game in, game out. You know, I think we're also sleeping on the fact that we have a Todd McClellan for the whole season. Opening night roster all the way through. He's doing training camp. You know, I think that carries a lot of weight as well for how this team is going to perform right out the gate. You know, we had a very mediocre October. A lot of us were saying to get rid of Lalonde in October. I think I even said in the group chat around this time last year, I'm giving Derek Lalonde until October 1st, like the end of October. I'm going to judge that record and I'll make a call on whether or not I think Snoozy should be canned. And I think I'm pretty sure I was booting down the door on November 1st that this guy needs to go.
Go back in the archives to a year ago, maybe a little bit further along than where we're at now. Carlo was making callouts during even preseason.
Yeah.
He was like, what are we even doing here? We all kind of laughed at him.
Yeah, I was getting chirped, and that's fine. That's okay.
It's just preseason, bro. Calm down.
But like, dude, and I get it. Like preseason's obviously toned down. You're not going hard. There's no points on the line. I get it. But like, I was just looking at the system. Like, I'm like, what are these guys doing? Like, this is where you work things out. And like my call out, I remember if you do go back, I said, we've just watched, I don't know, 7 or 8 preseason games and they've gotten worse after every game systemly. I'm like, is it preseason to get better? Like you learn it on game 1, 2, you kind of have some weird games. And then by game 6, 7, and 8, you got your systems figured out and you're going. Dude, they got worse. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a long season. And I got chirped. I got chirped for it, but I saw something. I mean, so did other people, obviously. But anyways, we digress.
So if there, to kind of close this out, because I feel like that we've talked more than enough about, I think that this is solidified. This would be our opening night roster, Carlo.
Yeah. I think
based on the way that it is right now before any trades.
I think it kind of has to be, yes. But I want to get into, well, let's see what your thoughts are, and then where are we going with this? Before I keep going.
Yeah, no, I think that this would be the solidified opening night roster if no changes were made. Now, obviously, I'm still concerned about that 4C spot. I don't think it's Michael Rasmussen. I do think that there is a trade somewhere down the line, and I do think it would be on the forward end. But I'm always saying this too. I don't want to have JT Compher on the 4C. I don't want to say. I also don't want to hear it from other fan bases. You guys are paying $5 million for your 4C. That's a terrible look. It's an absolute terrible look. But overall, I don't mind this roster. Is it my favorite? No. But it's all right. And I think that you would be fine going into the opening night with this roster. And I think that we will be quite surprised by some of the young guys and even by some of the newer guys that we brought onto this team. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I'm there. I mean, like you said, it's not the greatest, but it's there.
We sound so positive about it.
There's just it's seeing is believing, dude. Seeing is believing. Like we checked a couple boxes this offseason with some bottom pairing guys. Cool. But there's still glaring holes. And sure, we talked about the age and justified the fact about the kids and how they're kids and they have steps to take and they probably will. Seeing is believing. Seeing is believing. But enough about that. Let's talk about, I want to ask you this. We have kind of this odd man out on the 4C right now. It's like, Michael Rasmussen 4C, or is he going to go to the wing? What if he's part of a bigger picture in terms of a trade? What do you think about Ras getting traded, and how could that affect the team? Because I honestly think if Ras gets traded, Carter Mazur just plucks right into that lineup in that spot.
We always talk about how when we get into the trade deadline, we don't have those desirable players that come in at a really good age, at a really good cap hit. Our best player at that position that I just mentioned would be Michael Rasmussen, who can play center on the wing. The greatest center? No, not at all. 26 years old, though. He's locked in for 2 more seasons after this one at $3.2 million and does not have a modified clause, no clause whatsoever. So he is the most expendable player on this team. And looking at it, it was the 22-23 season where he got injured, and we were very close to getting that wild card spot. And we thought if we had him in, then that would have been the difference maker because he was on a tear towards that end of the season, right? Remember that? Yeah, ever since then, it really hasn't gotten that much better. While the following season, in 75 games, he put up 33 points. But this season, something happened. 21 points in 77 games. He looked a little lost, to be honest. He didn't quite look like himself. I don't know if that's an injury that's underlying ever since that previous injury that happened before. I don't know if it was because of Snoozy. Snoozy just got in his head and just really messed things up. But
I think that had Michael a lot to do with it.
Rasmussen, he's just an interesting case because we see him getting the A sometimes. I think the coaching staff likes him. He seems like a player that is a coach's type of player who will do whatever you want from him. But what he is asked to do, and then when he goes to translate that on the ice, I don't think it always translates the way it needs to. I don't think that we've ever truly utilized Michael Rasmussen properly either. Because if you go back looking at him in his WHL, I believe it was the WHL or QMJHL, whichever league he was in. I believe it was the W.
Was it the W?
He was a net front guy. Yeah, either way, he was a net front guy. He was a power play guy. We have not seen that from him whatsoever. Now, that's me underselling him. Now, if someone wants to come along and try and get him, you can. But I do believe that if you were to go out and basically do what you said, where you package a forward to try and get a defenseman, I do think you would have to attach something with a Michael Rasmussen to get that top 4D, whether if that's on the left or the right. But
100%. Totally.
I'm right there with you. I think Michael Rasmussen, by far, if it's not Jonathan Berggren, is the most expendable here. But Michael Rasmussen has the most stock to his name compared to a Jonathan Berggren. And we're not in the market to trade the players that we just signed, like JVR or Mason Appleton. The only other player that I could think of too would be Elmer Soderblom. So right now, what I'm looking at is, would you rather, and I'm asking the folks at home, let us know down in the comments, would you rather have Elmer Soderblom or Michael Rasmussen? And I think there's a reason why you gave Elmer Soderblom 2 years. Is because you know that Michael Rasmussen or Elmer Soderblom can be expendable. Your thoughts on that, Carl?
I would agree. I would totally agree. That's it. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that this roster construction currently holds when it comes to values, term, and player and age. There's a lot of I would say there's a lot of assets here based off of something that is desirable to other teams if there were some trades to go down, which I think is actually very sneaky, sleepy, and smart by Stevie Y. You know, maybe you can't make a player who hasn't done anything for you lately look desirable as a player, but their age, their term, their cap hit, you can make that look desirable. So kudos to Steve for going at that angle. And you know what? He's playing an interesting hand right now because now, you know, he's got these guys, whether it be Soda for 2 years, Aljo for 2 years. There could be something there. We've heard both those names in trade rumors. They were just rumors. No idea if there was any validity to them. But if those stocks pop, that's good for us or it's good for trades. Like it's a win-win. There's no risk. There's no risk in these, and I think that's a really sneaky move.
Yeah, I think we're at the point in time too where, I mean, we're talking about it like Michael Rasmussen. Can we actually make a case where we could put him in the third line right now based on the way that we have it constructed right now, Carlo? Because to be honest with you, I don't think we can. And for that reason, that's another reason why I believe Michael Rasmussen is expendable.
Yeah.
And if we tell him, you know, and it goes back to this, while I did say that he is a coach's type of player where if he's told to do something and he's going to do it, if we're telling him, hey, you got to play 4C, you're only going to get 9 minutes night in, night out, I think he's going to be fine with that. But deep down, I think he would be interested in a trade and going to a team that could give him a little bit more and showcase more of what he can do, especially now that he's getting more into his prime years. And that's the other thing too. We didn't really talk about that with Michael Rasmussen. We're kind of critical on him right now. And so is there an opportunity where we could see a Michael Rasmussen put up closer to 40 points, Carlo? Long pause.
Yeah, I don't think so, man. I mean, listen, there's also this is the crazy part about this lineup. Like we could also see Rasmussen on the top line with Larkin and Raymond. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different curveballs that could happen here. So I can't answer that question without knowing more context, which none of us are going to know until the season starts going on and the pucks are dropped. Like that's the reality of it. That's why it's so early to predict these things and it's difficult, you know, but I think the two takeaways for anybody listening is there needs to be another trade in the works for this to kind of complete itself mold wise. And then I think we're all going to be doing this again anyway, you know what I mean, to project. And then I think that question gets asked. Granted, he's still on the team, but if he is and moves are made and we do this again, we ask that question and we look at the lineup again then, and then we'll see if Ras is capable of 40. As of right now, with this roster, I don't think so. Do you?
I would agree. I would agree with you with that 100%. Now, me, tinfoil hatting it, I do see a world where Steve Yzerman actually does not make a trade at all this offseason.
Possible.
Keeps it the way it is. And let's say that there's not even any injuries. But let's say, Carter Mazur, he looked hella good in the preseason. He looks really good. Nate Danielson basically did the same thing Marco Kasper did last season. But unfortunately, we have to send them back down to Grand Rapids because we don't want to bench them. We don't want them to not play. I see a world where one injury happens or it just doesn't work out for the first 10 games based on your bottom 6, and then that's when Steve is forced to make a trade. I can see a world like that. We saw it literally with Ole Mata last season for Albert Johansson to come in and start playing. So your thoughts on that? Is there a situation where, or do you foresee something like that happening this season? Because to me, It's one or two ways. Steve does something pretty soon, or he doesn't and then does it mid-season.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna. One thing I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the one area, and I think the last piece that I wanted to touch on with this whole thing was there's also the thought of Stevie Y not making a trade, going into this season as is, and gearing up for a massive trade deadline. There's a big crop, right? We've been talking about it for a few weeks now of UFAs next July, and I think a lot of teams seen what was going on with Marner, and there might be some teams that are probably going to try to get ahead of making a move, making a trade, if they're not having a good conversation with extensions and whatnot, based off of everything that happened with Vegas and Toronto. And you probably know who I'm thinking about right now, and it's Kyle Connor. Is there a world where Stevie Y is gearing up to go into this season as is with Kyle Connor circled somewhere on a massive whiteboard to get something struck up there? I mean, he's obviously got that hometown connection to Detroit and in the Michigan area. I almost wonder that, Zach, if that's a play that they're looking at.
Yeah, real quick. And that's a great point. And I love that you brought that up, because going back to it, a world where Steve doesn't do anything this offseason, like doesn't make any trades, and then because we started this episode mentioning we still have $12 million with a full roster right now. And the glaring hole is that it's either the top 4 defense or that left wing spot. Defense, lock. They're just going to go with it. And I think that's more than fine. That left wing spot, that top left wing spot, the reason why we're going to see so many interchangeable players in that position is because Steve and Todd McLaren are going to see what sticks and what doesn't, and who's actually going to be that difference maker on this team. And if they don't see that by trade deadline on who that player is, then yes, I would agree with you. And not even just about Mitch Marner. We literally just saw that with Mikko Rantanen. Twice. And so I actually agree with you that might be the new logic for general managers going into future seasons from now. It's not free agency day, it's trade deadline day. Oh, you have issues with getting this player locked up? Okay, well, let's strike a deal right now, and then we'll have an extension in place, or we'll take on that worry.
Yeah.
I could see a world where that does happen, because like prominent people in the NHL and even us are saying, it's harder to get the really good talented players in free agency, and the next best way to get it is via trade.
Well, the one thing that stands out to me too, and this just supports what you're saying, is a lot of these players, they're now dictating where they want to go and where they want to play based off where they want to live and where they want to raise a family. I mean, with all that said, like, I would think, and I'm not saying or starting any rumors here, folks, please, but I'm just thinking if that is the case, there's got to be some sort of desire for Kyle Connor to want to come and play for his hometown team. And if we've noticed a ton of players going down that route of dictating where they go and where they want to play, you got to keep that one in your I guess on your wallpaper or on your whiteboard. Like, that one there is an interesting one. And I really wonder if that's something that, is in play right now. But to wrap up as well, and just touching on and expanding on what you said, trade deadline and GM's kind of retooling and a little bit of a changing of the guard this year. Obviously UFA was pretty weak. It's pretty soft, not a whole lot of groundbreaking stuff. I think this trade deadline this year is going to be banana lands. I think it's going to be nuts, and it's going to be a lot of fun to cover that. Just a hot take, real quick, not a big deal.
No, I actually would agree with you on that. I think that the trade deadline will be the new free agency day in terms of teams retooling on the fly. And I'm someone who's actually come out and said this before. Maybe it hasn't been on air or on record, but I actually believe the trade deadline should be sooner than when it is. I don't like that teams, by the time you make a trade, you only get to play 20 some odd games. Maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. I don't like that. I think it should be closer to the 35 game mark, so that way you can get acclimated to those teams. Drama and NHL, that's kind of what it is. And it brings in eyes, it brings in money too. But that's my own thought. So that's my hot take. I think that the NHL trade deadline should be sooner in the season. I think it should be actually towards the end of January, nowhere close to March.
I was going to say like mid-Feb.
You can even do that.
Each in the middle. Sometime in February. I think March 7th is interesting. because you nailed it. Like, there's just not a lot of time to go and make the difference. And I think it really only benefits teams that are kind of those lock teams for playoffs. It just makes them even better, propels them even more. And it kind of, when you're trying to make a trade, like if you're the Red Wings going into March 2nd and you're trying to make a trade for a stud to take you over the top, like, why would they go there if you're just still flirting with the wild card spot? They're going to want to go to a contender. They're not looking at you as a contender. So, we'll see what happens with this team, dude. I mean, if they get themselves into a position come March where they don't struggle and go on an absolute downward spiral, maybe they do become that team that's like, oh, shoot, I want to go play for this storied franchise, Original Six, Detroit Red Wings. They got it figured out. They're currently holding a wild card 1 spot with a tight race. I want to go and propel them and get them into the playoffs. That could be a desire for a player. I mean, we're talking about a very storied organization that, if we all know it, you don't think these players in the league know it? I'm sure if they see a team in Detroit that is, hanging, they're in the mix, I could see them wanting to go there and take them to the promised land again. I think that would be huge. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of optimism as well. But yeah, it's a fun one.
I think this is where we can go into our final thoughts, Carlo. Final thoughts on this opening night roster and anything else you got on your mind?
Seeing is believing. I'm gonna leave it at that. I think I've said that 5 times this episode. That's how confident or not confident I am in this lineup. But I'm gonna go with seeing is believing and check back in after a trade or two, and let's see where we're at. Where are you at?
I'm gonna copy and paste what Carlos said, but also just to recap basically a little bit of what we said. Marco Kasper, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, that's your top line. Alex DeBrincat, Andrew Kopp, Patrick Kane, your second line. James Van Riemsdyk, JT Compher, Maisel. It's Maisel now. It's Maisel. It's always going to be Maisel. That's one I'm going to put on.
For the ESPN broadcasting team, folks. Maisel Appleton.
Mason Appleton. That's your third line. JVR, JT Compher, Mason Appleton. Elmer Soderblom, Michael Rasmussen, Jonathan Berggren for your fourth line. And we never really got around to changing the extras, but right now that's what it would be. It would be Carter Mazur, Austin Watson, and Justin Hall. It would come down to Steve to go out and sign some other free agents or make those trades to where Carter Mazur can go back down to Grand Rapids, or even Austin Watson. And, a lot of fans are saying, oh, buy out Hall, or, send them down to the gulag down there in Grand Rapids, let them go through waivers. No, this is what we got. And so going on the defensive end, Ben Sherratt, Moritz Seider, Simon Evanson, Yelber Johansson, Eric Gustafsson, Jacob Bernard Docker, Justin Hall as your 7th defenseman. So that's just kind of wrapping up what we decided that would be the opening night roster. We believe that this would make the most sense without any trades done. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst, Carlos. Seeing is believing, quite like you said. Let us know what you think about this down in the comments. Let us know down in the comments as well how you would structure your opening night roster. We love the engagement and love being interactive with you guys on all of the platforms, even on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. Go ahead and find us on those. Follow us, subscribe to us, whatever it is that they ask you to do to see what we're putting out there. Please go ahead and do it, because we are doing this for you guys. We love interacting with you guys and giving out the content. From here, Carlo, I think this is it. My overall final thought is, let's get on out of here. Let's go enjoy the weather. Yeah. It's really nice outside.
Let's go and do it. Let's go and do it. Folks, drop us a line. We're eager to keep this conversation flowing until we get to the regular season, even preseason, and let's see what we can come up with. So like Zach said, we love engaging with you. It's time for us to go and have a good time outside and get away from this roster projection for now. And until next time, we'll talk to you on the next one. Smell you later.
Love you. Bye.